You lie down on the ground after a long day, and there's no mattress underneath you. No frame, no pillow, no clean sheets. Just packed earth, maybe a thin layer of grass, and the sound of a fire crackling a few feet away. Above you, the night sky is completely uninterrupted by streetlights. Somewhere close, an animal calls out, and you don't even flinch because someone in your group is awake and listening for exactly that. You close your eyes and fall asleep in minutes. Today, the average person spends around $2,600 on a single mattress and still lies awake scrolling a phone at midnight. For most of human history, there was no such thing as a bed the way you picture one. No springs, no memory foam, no bed frame elevating you off the floor. And yet your ancestors slept night after night for hundreds of thousands of years without any of it. So how did that actually work? Let's start with what no bed really meant, because it wasn't nothing. In 2011, archaeologist Lyn Wadley led excavations at Sibudu Cave in South Africa and uncovered something remarkable. Layers of ancient bedding roughly 77,000 years old. This wasn't a pile of leaves someone kicked together. It was constructed. Thick mats of sedge and rush grasses were laid down deliberately, compressed into a soft, insulating surface. That alone would be interesting. But Wadley found something stranger sitting right on top of it. The uppermost layer wasn't just grass. It contained leaves from a tree called Cryptocarya woodii, which naturally releases insect-repelling compounds. Whoever built that bedding wasn't just looking for something soft to lie on. They were building a barrier against mosquitoes and biting insects, using a plant they clearly understood had that property. You're not looking at a pile of leaves. You're looking at a designed sleeping surface chosen for comfort and for protection over 77,000 years ago. And there's a detail that makes this even more impressive. The layers weren't permanent. Evidence suggests older bedding was periodically burned, insects, parasites and all, and fresh material laid down on top. In other words, this wasn't a bed they abandoned when it got dirty. It was a bed they refreshed over and over, like a piece of technology they maintained. Later, Wadley's team pushed the timeline back even further. At Border Cave, also in South Africa, they identified bedding made from similar grasses dating back roughly 200,000 years, making it the oldest known constructed bedding on record. 200,000 years is longer than modern humans have existed as a fully recognizable species in some classifications. Bedding, it turns out, might be almost as old as you are. So bedding existed. But how did people actually decide where and how to sleep each night, without a bedroom, without walls, without a locked door? In 2015, researcher Gandhi Yetish led a study published in Current Biology that looked at sleep among three modern hunter-gatherer societies: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Tsimane of Bolivia. None of them use mattresses or bed frames. Most sleep on the ground, on mats, or on simple platforms, usually close to a fire and close to other people. What Yetish found wasn't chaos, it was structure. Sleep onset in these groups was tightly linked to a drop in ambient temperature after sunset, not to clocks or schedules. People weren't just falling asleep because it got dark. Their bodies were responding to the cooling environment, almost like an internal thermostat cueing rest. Notice what's missing from that description. No bedroom door, no blackout curtains, just fire, temperature, and the presence of other people nearby. That last part matters more than it might seem. Before your ancestors ever built shelters or wove mats, an even older sleeping habit shaped human biology. Researcher David Sampson has studied how great apes, our closest living relatives, build sleeping nests almost every single night, high in the trees, using bent branches and leaves. It's not a permanent structure. It's rebuilt constantly, tailored to that specific night, that specific tree, that specific need for safety above ground. At some point in human evolution, your ancestors came down, off the branches, onto the ground, near fire, in groups. That's an enormous shift. Sleeping on open ground, exposed to predators, only makes sense if something is compensating for the loss of that elevated safety. Fire was part of the answer. Companionship was the other. If you're enjoying learning how much of what we take for granted is actually ancient engineering, hitting subscribe means you won't miss the next one. Now back to the fire. Picture the scene at Sibudu, tens of thousands of years ago. A small group settles in for the night. Someone has laid down fresh grass bedding hours earlier, letting it dry and settle. The fire is built up before dark, not just for warmth, but as a visible, moving light that keeps larger predators at a distance. People position themselves close together, not randomly, but deliberately, with the most vulnerable, children, the elderly, sleeping toward the center. This wasn't a group of individuals who happened to fall asleep in the same spot. It was a designed arrangement: bedding for comfort and hygiene, fire for warmth and protection, proximity to other bodies for both warmth and a kind of built-in security system. Because in a group that size, someone is almost always semi-alert. And here's where it gets a little uncomfortable if you think about your own bedroom. Your ancestors, without walls or locks, may have actually felt safer falling asleep than some people do now, behind a deadbolt in a house alone. Safety wasn't a door, it was a group. None of this means ancient sleep was some kind of primitive paradise. Sleeping on the ground came with real costs: cold nights, insects despite the natural repellents, occasional predator scares, and almost no true privacy. But it also came with something modern sleep often lacks: a body responding naturally to darkness and temperature, and a mind that didn't have to manage the decision to feel safe alone. Which brings you back to that $2,600 mattress. Modern sleep technology spends enormous effort trying to recreate, artificially, what your ancestors built with grass and fire. Cooling mattresses try to mimic the temperature drop that once came free with nightfall. White noise machines replace the low, familiar hum of other people breathing nearby. Even weighted blankets are marketed for the sense of security they provide, the exact thing a sleeping group once offered, automatically. You're not sleeping worse because your body changed. In many ways, your body still expects the conditions your ancestors evolved to fall asleep in: cooling air, dim light, and a sense that you are not the only one keeping watch. Every mattress promising the perfect sleep environment is really promising to recreate something that already existed, for free, around a fire at Sibudu Cave 77,000 years ago. Your ancestors didn't need a bed to sleep well. They needed grass, fire, and each other. And it turns out that combination worked for longer than almost anything humans have built since. If stories like this one make you see everyday life differently, there's a lot more prehistory to explore, so make sure you're subscribed for the next one.